We have a trade, and it is a pretty big one. The Dallas Cowboys have traded a third-round pick and more to the Pittsburgh Steelers for wide receiver George Pickens, completing potentially the Cowboys offense. A lot of questions now for the Pittsburgh Steelers all around their passing game. We'll get into it from all sides, including who George Pickens is. What receiver are they getting in Dallas? All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. And got a good one today. Some great perspective from Matt on the Steelers and George Pickens and what went down with this trade that has been rumored to potentially be coming for a while now. I do want to welcome the new listeners as well to this podcast and remind you that helps us out tremendously. And if you want to hang out with us, talk ball every single day, subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts, and get those mailbag questions in for this week as well on Twitter or in the YouTube comments. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com to get started. So I think I want to start with the Cowboys because I think the Cowboys, it makes the most perfect sense. Like everything about this kind of lines up for the Dallas Cowboys. Big questions that you're going to have to answer for me about the Pittsburgh Steelers here and what's going on with their current build. But as far as the Dallas Cowboys go, and just to break down the exact details of this trade, it is a third-round pick that is going from, in the 2026 draft, going from the Dallas Cowboys to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then a day 3 pick swap in 2026 and 2027, right? So it is George Pickens and a 2027 sixth-round pick from the Steelers, and the Steelers are getting back a 2026 third from the Dallas Cowboys and a 2027 fifth-round pick. So the day 3 swap of fifth and sixth rounders is in the 2027 draft. So two on the one that just happened. And then the third rounder is next year going to the Pittsburgh Steelers for George Pickens. Just based on the return, how would you grade this trade for the Cowboys and the Steelers?
Well, I have a very strong inkling / pretty much know it that the Cowboys were willing to give up a fourth during this past draft or before the draft. They also had their eyes set on Ted McMillan, which did not work out for the Cowboys. And they've also had some talks with Amari Cooper since. And, it was weird that they didn't really address wide receiver at all when we did that podcast,
And just to pause on the Ted thing, that's why a trade like this didn't happen before the draft. If they got Ted
before the draft, right?
They want to see how this goes, and then let's talk after the draft. We'll offer you a fourth now. Steelers say, no, it's not enough. Okay, let's talk after the draft. A fourth this year becomes a third next year. That's kind of how it usually goes anyway. So that tracks.
So coincidentally, I do Locked On Dynasty every Wednesday. And the host, Marcus Mosher, does great work, happens to be the host of Locked On Cowboys. And I have a little bit of Steeler affiliation.
Yeah.
So we recorded that like an hour ago, too. So I got a lot of Marcus's takes. I really urge everyone to check that out, too. Because, it's a fantasy dynasty take, but we're talking about our teams, It'd be like if the Niners and Steelers made a trade right now, so
right.
He very much believed that the Cowboys will probably add another running back, even through Breece Hall's name out there, and thought for sure they would add a wide receiver of note and just really firm up the offense, try to get Pickens on his best behavior. CeeDee Lamb just gets so much attention, that he's going to get doubled all the time. Maybe Lamb's targets go down, but his quality of life goes up, and Pickens is a really dangerous dude, but the Cowboys don't really care about the volatility and some of the stuff he brings, which I can talk about more on the Steelers side, but I think it absolutely makes the Cowboys a much better team. Like if we had this conversation, we were talking about their draft, I'd be like, wow, their running game's going to open up. I mean, there's a lot here really improve this football team on Sundays, you know?
The thing, I don't think it's too much to give up for a player that
No.
is as talented as George Pickens is. And especially with what they gave up with the 3rd round pick and then, the day 3 pick swap, and especially it being in 2027 is interesting because the plan for the Cowboys is to let him play out his rookie contract. And if it works out,
He's one more year on his deal. We should tell people that too.
Yeah, one more year on his deal. So I think that's a lot to give up for a year of a guy, in some cases for the NFL. But Cowboys, I know that they don't want to spend a lot of money. They haven't done a lot of free agency. So you get a rookie contract receiver who is talented and can be the starter. The complementary pieces at wide receiver with CeeDee Lamb, it's a perfect match there. You got the underneath target hog, everything guy in CeeDee Lamb, and then you got the downfield guy should open it up for him. So love that as well. And if things go great and you love him, you can just re-sign him. And then it's a bargain to trade a 3rd and, a pick swap to have a number 2/1B wide receiver with a true 1A wide receiver. So that's phenomenal. And if he's good, but you don't love him, then you let him walk, and then you get a comp pick back anyway in that 2027 draft, which could be a 3rd even in its own, or maybe a 4th or even a 5th. So you're really not even all that much for George Pickens right now. So it doesn't make any more sense for anybody than it does for the Dallas Cowboys. Perfect fit, stylistically, talent-wise. It's doesn't cost you much in salary, does cost you much in draft picks, especially when you consider you're either going to sign him long-term, which is a bargain if you love him, and if you don't, then he walks and you probably get a comp pick because he'll probably be good enough to get some sort of a contract, and wide receiver money is huge these days too. So for that reason, doesn't make any more sense. You couldn't make more sense than for the Dallas Cowboys. You made that need, and we talked about not adding any playmakers in the draft, and now we know why.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. They don't usually shop outside the organization in free agency. So if he walks, they'll probably get the 3rd comp. Marcus mentioned on the show he looked ahead to the wide receiver class next year. It's terrible. So he'll probably get overpaid if he's on the market and yield you a 3rd or whatever. And the other insight I could give you is if he's real good and you kind of like him, you could franchise him too. I don't think that's crazy with his ability.
Right.
Now, I know the Steelers had that conversation too within their walls and thought he's going to be a real problem if we slap the franchise tag on him. He's going to be hard to be around, but maybe in Dallas, it's a different world and they win the Super Bowl. I don't know. But I think it's great for the Cowboys.
Another quick note on the Cowboys. This just came down from Warren Sharp before we went on, and Dak Prescott, the last 2 years, he's been the number 1 quarterback in the NFL on passing yards on 15+ yard go routes. Number 2 on the most attempts of 15+ yard go routes. George Pickens, the last 2 years, number 1 most receiving yards on 15+ yard go routes, and number 2 most catches on 15+ yard go routes. So
doesn't surprise me at all.
And Dak also has the number 3 best quarterback accuracy of those downfield throws as well. And so that's a nice little fit. And that is the area of the field where it is not the best area of the field for CeeDee Lamb. So again, perfection as far as fit goes, as long as George Pickens has his head screwed on straight. And I do want to add one more thing as far as Pickens, the player, and I want to get your scouting report on the other side. But one of the additions I want to make here to George Pickens and who he is, I think time is on his side massively, because I knew he was young. Remember, he showed up at Georgia, just true freshman.
5-star recruit.
Wow, this guy's making plays. He's going to be the next superstar wide receiver, and he's going to be, it's the same. We were talking about George Pickens a few years ago, the same way we were talking about the Ohio State kid right now, right? It's like, oh my God, this guy's
right.
He's going to be a top 10 draft pick. So he's 20 years old when he was drafted. He's still 24. And he's not turning 25. Like, he just turned 24 in March. He is super young, and maybe some immaturity. So maybe just
there's immaturity.
Yeah. So maybe just and some time is the best thing that could happen for George Pickens, to be in a contract year, to be like, okay, you're a professional, you're getting older, you're still just turned 24 years old. And so there's a lot still to be written with George Pickens, and his career could go a lot of directions right now. He could become a journeyman and nobody wants a part of him, or he could become still a superstar number 1 type of receiver because he has that type of ability.
And hopefully he matures and looks himself in the mirror and says, I need to fly straight, at least for this year.
Yeah.
And clearly receivers that the Steelers have moved on from have fallen through the floor. Deontay, Claypool, Juju, even AB. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Steelers receivers need their own documentary film because
Martavis Bryant.
Martavis is the one that comes to mind. I think that's kind of closest to George Pickens, right? That linear build, and he was ridiculously talented, and then just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I don't even know where Martavis Bryant is. So yeah,
could go to the league about 5 years too early. Like marijuana wasn't cool then. Now it's okay.
More on George Pickens, the full scouting report. What are the Cowboys getting? And we're going to look at this deal from the Pittsburgh Steelers side next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Skylight and the Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. And especially when you got a family and you want to end those excuses of, I didn't know this was happening. You got recitals over here, you got practices over here, and you're trying to got work meetings that you've got to get to as well. And I know I get notifications from so many places. It'd be nice to have it all in one place, and that's where Skylight Calendar comes in. And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. We're talking HD 15-inch, tons of different options with skylightcal.com/NFL. So from the Pittsburgh Steelers standpoint, and just from a George Pickens talent standpoint, we kind of talked a little bit about him, and he'll make some highlight catches. He's obviously a phenomenal receiver, very talented going down the field and getting the football. It was a little curious when they added DK Metcalf. It was like, okay, well, that's DK Metcalf too. That didn't jive. And so when there was trade rumors about George Pickens, you understood why. So we got to find out what the Steelers are doing, because while the Cowboys might be nearing completion, the Steelers clearly are not even close to done right now and are even further away from being done, I would assume, for what they want to put on the field in 2025 and, forget beyond 2025. But just from George Pickens, what's that? What are the Cowboys getting? What is the George Pickens scouting report?
Here's the player is incredibly talented. Like if you walk past him in the hall, it's like, whoa, if you've never seen him before. And you see him on the practice field, just screwing around, doing drills or whatever. Whoa. And everyone's seen the body control and the length and, the ability to go up and play above the rim is really as good as anyone in the league, in my opinion. And his first year, and if you remember, he hardly did anything his last year at Georgia. He had a knee, came back to the national championship, ran a route or two, but 5-star recruit, you can see that all day long. His rookie year, led the league in go routes, your Warren Sharp stat, and really ran a very limited tree. But he was fresh off an injury. Matt Canada didn't help him. I will say that for 2 years. But every year, to George's credit, he has got much more diverse route tree. Now, I would not say he's got the full, every branch is great. I mean, his in-breaking stuff is very lackluster. He doesn't like going over the middle and will pull up or short, his route enthusiasm on in breakers isn't the same as go routes. Still a go route specialist, but he can eat you up in a lot of ways. Really improved after the catch too. He's hard to get on the ground. He's fast. He can run away from people. He's a competitive football player without question. Now, I guess I'll just be honest. Nobody liked him in the whole organization. None of his teammates, no one in the building. They did not want to be around him. They disliked him as a person. There's clearly immaturity there. You saw some of it on the sidelines and things like that too, but it's all the time. And for him, I hope this is kind of eye-opening, and maybe I should just reel it back a little bit, make a big payday at the end of the year. But it's not as bad as AB's last year, but yeah, and it kind of had to go.
I've seen people say that it was a failure. Like the George Pickens draft pick was a failure, and those immaturity reasons and character stuff is the reason he fell to the second round to where the Steelers drafted him in the first place. And so,
and there's an injury.
Yeah, and we knew a lot of this, coming into the league, and some teams didn't want to deal with it. The Steelers are clearly okay with dealing with that kind of stuff to a certain degree before they get tired of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's AB
position for whatever reason.
Claypool, Martavis Bryant. Like, what is it with the Steelers being phenomenal at finding talent, but also kind of goofballs, like weirdos, right? In some cases,
I don't have the answer. Although I do think it's kind of if you hate Tomlin, which a lot of people do all of a sudden, well, he can't handle these guys. They don't care about character. If you love Tom, then you're like, well, I'll take the guy with the wart and I'll get the most out of him. Like, he got an awful lot out of Antonio Brown that I don't know that anyone else would have. You know what I mean?
Like, people are like, oh, it was a failure of a draft pick for George Pickens. It's like, you drafted him in the second round. He was your number one receiver, and you got a third round pick back. Like, that's a success.
Right. You weren't going to resign him. They were not going to give him money. I'm just telling you that right now. They weren't going to franchise, and they were not going to give him guaranteed money no matter what. So they were either going to rent him out for the rest of the year or this. And I very much will be shocked if there's not another shoe to drop. Like, I think they'll be in the market to add one more, not Robert Woods, who they just signed, but I think they'll be in the market to get a receiver. And I've got a bunch of names, and I don't know how available they are, but I think that they'll be in the market to do something. So this is really important in the equation too, BP, is as of right now, they've got their first, their second, 3/3, 2/4, 2/5, 2/6, and a 7th next year. Okay. I mean, 4 comp picks plus Dallas is third. And if Fields and Russell Wilson, play like every snap, they might end up with 4/3. Like, they can I very, very much believe they are doing everything possible to probably win 9 or 10 games again, get the 19th pick, the 20th pick, invest heavily to move up to 8 to get a quarterback in next year's draft. And they have a lot of firepower to do it. But a bunch of 4th and 5th don't get you real far in the first round. Like, they could easily trade a 4th or 5th round pick for a receiver today, And I think
they're going
to do something like that. I think they're going. I think there's another shoe to drop in the next day or two. And I also think Rodgers is going to be a Steeler in the next week.
Well, yeah, there has to be another shoe to drop because you need to field a football team. And right now, the current Steelers
looks
wide
just like
receiver,
last year's receiving core. If you swap out Pickens, it's one good guy and a bunch of dudes. Right.
Yeah, and
that's why really Pittsburgh's losing their mind. They're like, "What'd they do all this for?" It's exactly like last year. I'm like, "Well, they're not playing tomorrow."
There is an unknown of Roman Wilson. Is there any reports on where he's at? And he didn't really have much of a rookie season.
His whole story was just couldn't really get on the moving train. That he was injured well into the season, but he could have dressed like week 12-ish. And at that point, he had no real rapport with the quarterbacks and nothing bad, but it's like he's a rookie again, basically.
Yeah. So you have
that's something.
He's a wild card there. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, the number 3? Because you got Calvin Austin, who
I thought him and Austin would really battle it out for number 3.
Yeah. And then DK Metcalf, and then Robert Woods is the veteran in the room, right?
Who might not even make team. It's a league minimum deal, right?
And then Skronik and Scotty Miller.
Skronik's a great special teamer. So they need a 2.
Right. So you need a number 2 wide receiver, and then you've got some guys battling for 3 and 4, and it really just like stretches out the roster in the wide receiver room and makes it complete. So
and I think everyone remembers the Steelers fell off a cliff at the end of the season. They played a really difficult stretch of games, but Pickens was also out for a while. And the offense, you can't be that reliant on one guy. That's why Steeler Nation's losing their mind. Like, well, what if Metcalf gets hurt? Then they're never going to win again. I'm like, it's not over yet.
And he's been dinged up in his career too.
Yeah.
So let's go through the names then next, right? And talk about some of the players that might be fits for the Steelers. What could be that possible move? We could be talking free agent. We could be talking trades. Could we be talking potentially a free agent and a trade? And is there anybody that's even available out there? We'll get into that next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And when it comes to the NBA playoffs, they're in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. And whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. When a player gets hot, you can jump into some same-game parlays, live in-game betting with the NBA playoffs, super fun. And FanDuel makes it easy. Before tip-off or live during the games, player props, performance trends, same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And how could $200 in bonus bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? If you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And you can still bet on, NFL football and Major League Baseball every day. Bet on your favorite team to win the Super Bowl. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com or download the app and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. Who is Mason Rudolph going to throw the ball to this year?
Will Howard. Yeah.
Do we not know what the wide receiver group is going to look like? We don't know what the quarterback room is going to look like. It seems less than ideal as we sit here on the 7th of May.
100%. So here's my list that I just kind of whipped out of thin air. I'll start with very uninspiring. Gabe Davis got released today. Man,
Perfect timing, though. He has been a number 2 in the NFL.
Right. And he stretches the field in a pseudo Pickens-like manner, and you'd get him for nothing. And I mean, that's a Robert Woods level signing to me. Alan Lazard is available.
That was the first name I was going to bring up, and that is there is a near 100% chance that Lazard and Aaron Rodgers are coming to town.
I'm not bringing Randall Cobb's name.
I don't have any time, but I'm just like, how could that not be happening?
How could that not be happening?
Yeah.
Which I think is okay. I mean, it's better than Van Jefferson and Robert Woods, but it's not the answer to me. 2 free agents of note that I think you at least have to examine, but have been out there for a reason. Keenan Allen, a fellow Cal guy. Him and Rodgers weren't there together, but I still think he can move the chains for you. Marcus and I joked that he runs like us, and you're probably faster than him. I'm not.
I think he'd be a great fit. Like, just like, okay, veteran player come in,
right,
need a number 2. But the way he operates, and he's such a good slot guy, and that's kind of like, you got Calvin Austin, Robert Woods already, and even Wilson, Roman Wilson. Like, that's kind of what the idea of what he would be is like that, slot number 3 wide receiver, tough guy over the middle kind of stuff. And so for that reason, stylistically, I don't know if Keenan Allen's the great fit, but
there's nothing like Pickens at all.
Right. Yeah.
Amari Cooper. Now, I've done a lot of work on him, and he might be done. But a lot of this I stole from Matt Harmon, who's phenomenal. His time with the Browns, and this is basically Matt's quote, is Cooper was open all the time this past year, but the quarterbacks couldn't give him the ball. Then he suffers, he gets traded to the Bills, and he suffered some kind of injury very early on in his Bill tenure and never got open once. And he had the quarterback in Buffalo, but couldn't get open. In Cleveland, it was the opposite. Now, he might be shot. I don't know. But he's a free agent, and it's odd nobody signed him. He was linked to the Cowboys before this trade. Does that do anything for you?
Yeah, I mean, Cooper's one of the first names. Well, Cooper was one of the names that was brought up with the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
And it's interesting that either Cooper didn't want to go back to the Cowboys for whatever reason. The Cowboys didn't want to spend the money it was going to take.
I think everyone on the planet would rather have Pickens.
Yeah, the fact that they would rather trade a pick to get Pickens than just sign without giving up picks Amari Cooper tells me what the Dallas Cowboys think of him. But
I didn't know if they left on good terms.
It didn't seem like it, or maybe it's just purely money. Like the Cowboys are just, we need the best wide receiver we can get that is on a rookie contract. In which case, Pickens was the best option.
I've also heard Amari's kind of a weird dude. Like, I remember him saying, "I don't like playing in cold weather." Well, he just played for the Browns and Bills.
Right. He's like a really introverted guy too, from what I understand, and
right.
Had
a weird career.
It can be misconstrued in a lot of ways too.
Okay, here's my other names that are a little more exciting. I can tell you for a fact that the Steelers basically had a trade done with the Jags for Christian Kirk and then the next day he dresses for the Jags and gets hurt. And I know he's on a new team, but the Texans drafted 2 wide receivers. I don't think that'd be terrible, but he's slot-ish too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they gave up a 7th for him. You could probably get him for a 5th or, you know, 2-6.
Is Brandon Cooks still out there? He hasn't played for the Steelers yet. He's trying to
No, he's back in New Orleans, of course. He's come full circle.
Okay.
I assume Ayuk is off the table at this point. Steelers Ayuk conversation
situation. That's been so weird.
They've discussed it.
Yeah, they had a deal done, right? Like they thought it was happening. Kyle Shanahan, the story went in and squashed it at the last moment, and so that didn't end up happening. And then the Niners were like, "Well, maybe we should trade him again after the season, after they just signed him too." So I don't know where
what's going on there,
he stands, but then the Niners would be in the same situation that the
right. I don't know what that means.
Now, like they would be needing a number. Well, they would need a number 1, depending on what they think of year 2 guy in Ricky Pearsall, because they already lost Deebo Samuel. So I don't know how the Niners can really go through with a trade like that. Plus, he's still hurt and rehabbing his
still hurt. Right.
So that would be a tough. That would be a tough sell for the Niners getting what they want, which is probably why they didn't trade him earlier this offseason when they were thinking about it before the draft.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, at one point, the Steelers adored him. Yeah. But times have changed, and you're not giving up a first for him now. The Packers drafted 2 wide receivers, including Golden in the first round. Watson's probably out for the year. I don't know that they'd move on from Reed, but I bet you could get Romeo Doubs, who I think played with Rodgers his rookie year.
Yeah,
now, that's not earth-shattering, but that's not bad.
Stylistically, a nice fit.
Yeah, he'll block, and, you know, he's okay as a 2. I think he's a 3. I've never been a huge fan. And then I got 3 big names.
Okay.
Tyreek. Now, I don't think that helps your drama situation get any better.
Yeah.
And he's facing some legal stuff. But actually, I will tell you, the Steelers talked to my... What's that?
He's a perfect Steeler. And then, and then it can go just completely off the rails for him. But he can be great for a little while still.
You can get Antonio Brown to come out of retirement, too.
Yeah.
But I do know there were talks at one point, I don't know how serious, between the Steelers and Miami about Tyreek. But there's also been legal allegations since. I think you could pry Michael Pittman away from the Colts. He's making money. They got a bunch of receivers. I don't know if I'm just making that up out of thin air, but I think you could do that. But he had some back stuff last year, which is always worrisome. He never used to have a back injury. And the first thing I tweeted whenever I saw the trade this morning was DJ Moore. You just drafted.
Love it.
To me, I love it. Right. I mean, he's a lot different than Pickens, but he's run after the catch. He's a little more Arthur Smith. He's making money.
But you can move him around as well.
Right.
And
maybe you trade a 4th for him and you made a round of, put a round of draft capital in your pocket, pick up his contract, Adunze, and, they roll out Adunze and Burden time and time again. And
Burden fell into their lap, and they drafted a first-round tight end as well. So they went back-to-back pass catchers, the Bears did.
And Komet's going to play a fair amount.
I like that one. That was the first thing
I
thought.
When
the Bears drafted Burden, I was like, yep, DJ Moore could potentially be the dark horse on the move player now. He would be the veteran in the wide receiver room. Do you want to move on from him now? Would that be more of a trade deadline thing potentially? If you like what you see from Burden, you think he's ready to jump into the starting lineup. But
I got the impression Ben Johnson watched his tape and was not happy with DJ Moore's effort and didn't run his routes as strong as he should have last year. And it was sort of a dysfunctional situation, of course, too. I
probably saw a guy that people are treating as a 1, but is really a 2. And if he's
that's really what he is.
And he's being paid a lot of money, it would make sense to move on. You'd have to feel really good about your young receivers there, though.
Yeah.
And then maybe that's a team that just adds one of these veteran guys, too.
Talking about the Bears?
Yeah. What about Keenan Allen to the Bears after the Bears trade DJ Moore to the Steelers?
Yeah, right. I mean, they could not be done, too. Keep a veteran or whatever. But DJ Moore and Romeo Doubs are the 2 I would kind of keep an going on. No one's told me anything. I'm just looking. I'm trying to think as they might think. And it wouldn't shock me if Lazard ends up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Lazard and Aaron Rodgers. It kind of has to be, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of what would be your offer right now, real quick? I'm Ryan Poles. You're calling me a 4th round pick for DJ Moore?
Yeah. No, pick up his entire contract. They signed him last off season, I think.
Mm-hmm.
if he's fallen out of favor. That seems like the going rate. You know?
I need one of those thirds. You just, I already know you got like 9 third-round picks. I'm going to need one of those, Matt.
Okay. You could probably do it and throw me a pick swap in 2030 like they did.
Yeah, another pick swap.
Right.
You want that 2027 day 3 pick back? There you go.
I always make fun of it around here. Every trade Omar Khan's made, he's done the late pick swap. Pickett, Deontay, Pickens. Every time it's like, okay, we got a deal, but I need your 6 for my 7th.
Yeah, I need 3 more points on the trade chart.
Right. And that would be enough for me to give you the 3rd.
There we go. All right, done deal.
I would trade Pickens straight up for DJ. You know, you get more money, you have less headaches, blah, blah, blah.
Makes sense all around. Yeah, it's still a good fit. You're going to ask too much of DJ Moore.
Right. Make him your 2. He's different than Metcalf, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we could figure that all out.
Yeah.
There we go. George Pickens, now a member of the Dallas Cowboys. Let us know what you think at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Drop a question for this week's mailbag in the comments. We're took a little daily reprieve here because of the big news, but we'll get back into our 2025 NFL draft grades. Up next, the AFC South on tomorrow's episode.
Or we mailbagging tomorrow.
What is tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow is the mailbag day. It's already Thursday.
The week's getting away from us.
Oh my goodness. It is mailbag day tomorrow. So we'll do AFC South on Friday. So yeah, get those questions in on tomorow's episode.
We might have an Aaron Rodgers, DJ Moore podcast tomorrow too.
Oh, that might be that too. So
Alan Lazard.
We'll have it all covered for you as we do every day. Peacock and Williamson.